Hollywood has a remake problem. Every year, studios dig up some beloved classic, slap a fresh coat of CGI on it, and expect audiences to line up like nothing happened. And most of the time, the result is forgettable at best and insulting at worst. Remember that 2012 Total Recall remake? Yeah, neither does anyone else. But here's the thing nobody talks about. Every once in a while, a filmmaker picks up someone else's idea and turns it into something the original never could have been. Not just a better version, a completely different beast. The kind of movie that makes people forget the first one ever existed. Today, we're counting down 9 sci-fi remakes that didn't just match the originals, they left them in the dust. And some of these, you probably didn't even know they were remakes. Stick around, because the last one on this list might be the greatest do-over in movie history. Number 9. The Blob, 1988. Most people know the 1958 version of The Blob for one reason. It was one of Steve McQueen's first starring roles. Beyond that, it's a charming little drive-in flick where a gelatinous alien crashes to Earth and slowly absorbs everything in its path. It's campy, it's fun, and it hasn't exactly aged like fine wine. Nobody was begging for a redo. But in 1988, director Chuck Russell decided to take that goofy premise and drag it kicking and screaming into something terrifying. The remake keeps the basic setup. Small town, strange organism, people start disappearing. But that's where the similarities end. Russell's version is meaner, gorier, and way more unpredictable than anything the original attempted. Characters you're absolutely certain are going to survive get wiped out in the first act. The kid who looks like the hero? Gone. The tough guy who seems destined to save the day? Dissolved before you can blink. Nobody feels safe. The practical effects are where this thing really shines. The Blob doesn't just absorb people, it melts them, pulls them apart, drags them through drains. There's a scene involving a phone booth that still makes people squirm nearly 4 decades later. Every kill is grotesque, creative, and disturbingly plausible within the film's own logic. Here's the twist nobody expected. The movie also adds a government conspiracy angle. The Blob isn't just some random space organism anymore. There are people who knew it was coming, people who wanted it here. That layer of paranoia elevates the whole film from a simple creature feature into something with actual teeth. The 1988 Blob flopped at the box office, barely making back its budget, but it found its audience. Today, it's considered one of the most underrated horror films of the 80s, and a textbook example of how to remake a B-movie the right way. But that wasn't the only B-movie that got a massive glow-up. Number 8. Little Shop of Horrors, 1986. Roger Corman's 1960 Little Shop of Horrors is the definition of a cult curiosity. Shot in 2 days, on a budget that wouldn't cover catering on a modern set, it tells the story of a hapless florist's assistant who discovers that his new plant has a taste for human blood. It's scrappy, it's funny in a rough-around-the-edges way, and it features a young Jack Nicholson in a brief but memorable role as a masochistic dental patient. For a film made in 48 hours, it's impressive, but nobody would call it great cinema. Then, Frank Oz got hold of it. The 1986 remake, adapted through the wildly successful off-Broadway musical, turned that threadbare B-movie into something spectacular. Rick Moranis plays Seymour, the lovable nerd trapped in a dead-end flower shop on Skid Row, and he brings a warmth to the role that the original never attempted. Ellen Greene reprises her stage role as Audrey, and the chemistry between them is so sweet, it almost makes you forget that the movie is fundamentally about feeding people to a giant alien plant. And what a plant! Audrey II, voiced with volcanic charisma by Levi Stubbs of the Four Tops, is one of the greatest movie monsters ever created. Not through CGI, but through jaw-dropping practical puppetry. The creature grows from a tiny bud to a building-sized horror, and every stage looks tactile and alive. It sings, it schemes, it devours people whole. The musical numbers are infectious, the humor is razor-sharp, and Steve Martin nearly steals the entire film as a sadistic, Elvis-impersonating dentist. What makes this remake work isn't just the budget upgrade or the songs, it's the heart. The original was a dark joke with a punchline. The 1986 version is a love story, wrapped in a horror comedy, wrapped in a musical. And somehow, all 3 layers work in perfect harmony. The original sits at a 6.2 on IMDb. The remake? 7.1. And honestly, that gap should be wider. Speaking of turning schlock into art. Number 7. The Fly, 1986. The 1958 version of The Fly is a fun little creature feature. A scientist's head and arm get swapped with a fly's during a teleportation experiment. Vincent Price shows up to class things up, and the whole thing plays out like a particularly inventive episode of The Twilight Zone. It's entertaining, it's memorable, but when David Cronenberg got his hands on the concept in 1986, he turned it into something that hits you on a completely different level. Cronenberg's version stars Jeff Goldblum as Seth Brundle, a brilliant but socially awkward scientist who accidentally merges his DNA with a common housefly during a teleportation test. But there's no sudden head swap here. Instead, Brundle's transformation happens gradually, and that's what makes it unbearable to watch. At first, he feels incredible, stronger, faster, more confident. He thinks the machine improved him, and then the fingernails start falling off. What elevates this film from horror into genuine tragedy is the relationship between Brundle and journalist Veronica Quaife, played by Gina Davis. Goldblum and Davis were a real couple at the time, and that chemistry bleeds through every frame. You're not just watching a man turn into a monster, you're watching someone lose the person they love to something neither of them can stop. It's a metaphor for disease, for aging, for watching a partner deteriorate in front of your eyes. Cronenberg understood that the scariest thing about The Fly was never the creature, it was the helplessness. The makeup effects won an Academy Award, and they hold up flawlessly. Brundle's gradual decay from human to something unrecognizable remains some of the most disturbing practical work ever committed to film. The original Fly is a fun midnight movie. Cronenberg's version is a devastating piece of cinema, sitting at 93% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's not even close. But not every great remake starts with a creature feature. Number 6. Dredd, 2012. Let's talk about the 1995 Judge Dredd movie for a second. Sylvester Stallone in a gold outfit, Rob Schneider cracking jokes. Dredd takes off his helmet in the first 15 minutes. For fans of the comics, it was a nightmare. The character of Judge Dredd, a fascistic, helmet-wearing law enforcer in a dystopian megacity, got turned into a generic 90s action flick with a predictable redemption arc and zero understanding of what made the source material compelling. It sits at a 5.6 on IMDb, and frankly, that's generous. Then 2012 happened. Director Pete Travis and screenwriter Alex Garland stripped everything back to the bone. Carl Urban plays Dredd, and he never, not once, removes his helmet. There's no origin story, no love interest, no quippy sidekick, just a day on the job. Dredd and rookie psychic Judge Anderson, played by Olivia Thirlby, respond to a triple homicide in a 200-story megablock controlled by drug lord Mama, portrayed with ice-cold menace by Lena Headey. The building goes into lockdown. They fight their way to the top. That's it, and it's absolutely riveting. What Garland's script understands is that Dredd works best as a force of nature, not a character who grows or changes. He's the same relentless, morally unyielding machine at the end as he is at the beginning. The emotional arc belongs entirely to Anderson, who starts the film uncertain and ends it hardened. It's a clever structural choice that gives the audience someone to connect with while keeping Dredd exactly as terrifying as he should be. The film bombed at the box office. Bad marketing, unfair comparisons to The Raid, and the lingering stink of Stallone's version all played a part, but home video changed everything. Dredd found its audience, built a massive cult following, and fans have been campaigning for a sequel ever since. The Stallone version is a punchline. The Urban version, sitting at a well-earned 7.1 on IMDb, is the real deal. But sometimes, a remake doesn't need to reinvent the wheel. Number 5. Rise of the Planet of the Apes, 2011. Most people think of 1968's Planet of the Apes when this franchise comes up. Charlton Heston, the twist ending, all of it. But buried in the original series is a 1972 sequel called Conquest of the Planet of the Apes, where Caesar, the son of two time-traveling apes, leads a violent revolt against humanity after apes have been enslaved as servants. It was ambitious for its time, but a shrinking budget, pullover rubber masks on extras, and a studio-mandated softer ending kept it from delivering on its own premise. It sits at a 6.1 on IMDb, and most casual fans have never even heard of it. In 2011, Rise of the Planet of the Apes took that same core idea. An intelligent ape named Caesar sparks a revolution, and rebuilt it from the ground up with technology that finally matched the ambition. Andy Serkis delivers what might be the single greatest motion capture performance in cinema history. His Caesar isn't just a special effect, he's a fully realized character with an emotional arc that goes from childlike innocence to burning rage to reluctant leadership, all conveyed through eyes and body language that feel impossibly real. The script, by Rick Jaffa and Amanda Silver, grounds the whole thing in genuine science. James Franco plays a researcher developing an Alzheimer's cure that accidentally gives Caesar human-level intelligence. The ethical dimensions aren't just background noise, they drive every decision in the story. When Caesar finally speaks his first word, it lands like a thunderclap because the film has spent nearly 2 hours making you understand exactly what that moment costs him. Where Conquest felt rushed and constrained, Rise takes its time building toward an uprising that feels both inevitable and heartbreaking. The Golden Gate Bridge sequence alone makes the original's parking garage riot look like a student film. Rise earned a 7.6 on IMDb, spawned 2 even better sequels, and proved that a franchise everyone thought was dead could be resurrected with the right story and the right technology. Number 4. I Am Legend, 2007. Richard Matheson's 1954 novel I Am Legend has been adapted 3 times, and each attempt pushed closer to getting it right. The first was 1964's The Last Man on Earth with Vincent Price, atmospheric but limited. The second was 1971's The Omega Man with Charlton Heston, a campy, action-heavy take that turned Matheson's existential horror into a 70s shoot-'em-up. It's entertaining in a dated way, but it barely scratches the surface of what makes the source material terrifying. It sits at around a 6.5 on IMDb. Then Will Smith stepped into the role in 2007, and the result was the most commercially successful and emotionally devastating version to date. Smith plays Robert Neville, a military virologist who is seemingly the last human being alive in New York City after a genetically engineered virus wiped out civilization and turned the survivors into feral, light-sensitive creatures. What makes Smith's performance so remarkable is how much of the film rests entirely on his shoulders. For large stretches, he's the only person on screen, and he sells the isolation, the grief, and the slow erosion of sanity with a rawness that Heston never attempted. The empty Manhattan sequences remain some of the most haunting images in modern sci-fi. Overgrown streets, herds of deer running through Times Square, a city reclaimed by nature while one man desperately tries to maintain routine just to keep himself from falling apart. There's a scene involving Neville's dog that has made grown adults openly weep in theaters. And it works because the film takes the time to establish that relationship as the last thread keeping him human. The film isn't perfect, the CGI creatures haven't aged well, and the theatrical ending departs sharply from Matheson's brilliantly bleak original conclusion. But as a vehicle for Smith's performance, and as a visceral portrait of what true loneliness looks like, I Am Legend surpasses The Omega Man in every measurable way. A 7.2 on IMDb, a worldwide gross of over $500 million, and a legacy that the earlier versions simply can't touch. But when it comes to remaking something truly massive, Number 3. Dune, 2021. David Lynch's 1984 Dune is one of the most fascinating failures in cinema history. Lynch assembled an incredible cast, Kyle MacLachlan, Patrick Stewart, Sting, and tried to compress Frank Herbert's sprawling, dense novel into a single film. The studio interfered at every turn. The inner monologue voiceovers were awkward. The pacing was chaotic. Lynch himself has largely disowned it, and while the film has developed a devoted cult following, even most of its defenders admit it barely scratches the surface of what Herbert's universe demanded. When Denis Villeneuve announced he was taking on the same source material, the pressure was enormous. Herbert's novel had been considered unfilmable for decades, and Lynch's attempt seemed to prove the point. But Villeneuve had something Lynch never did: the freedom to split the story across multiple films, and the technology to bring Arrakis to life the way it existed on the page. The result is staggering. Villeneuve's Dune is a visual and auditory experience unlike almost anything else in modern cinema. The sandworms don't just appear on screen, they shake the theater. The ornithopters feel like real machines. The desert planet of Arrakis feels endless, hostile, and breathtakingly beautiful at the same time. Hans Zimmer's score doesn't just accompany the film, it overwhelms you, blending traditional orchestration with alien textures that make the whole universe feel foreign. But what really separates this version is patience. Where Lynch rushed through plot points and crammed exposition into awkward narration, Villeneuve lets the story breathe. He trusts the audience to absorb the world, the politics, and the mythology without spelling everything out. Timothée Chalamet brings a vulnerability to Paul Atreides that the original never achieved. The 2021 Dune became a massive hit, spawned a franchise, earned an 8.0 on IMDb compared to Lynch's 6.3, and finally proved that Herbert's masterwork could work on screen. It just needed the right pair of hands. Number 2. Bugonia, 2025. Unless you're deep into Korean cinema, you've probably never heard of Save the Green Planet. Released in 2003, Jang Joon-hwan's micro-budget cult film is a wild, genre-bending story about a mentally unstable beekeeper who kidnaps a corporate executive, convinced the man is actually an alien plotting to destroy Earth. It blends sci-fi with black comedy, psychological thriller elements, and social commentary in a way that feels unhinged. It won several awards in South Korea, but barely registered outside of Asia. For 20 years, it remained one of the best-kept secrets in genre cinema. Then, Yorgos Lanthimos got involved. The director behind The Lobster, The Killing of a Sacred Deer, and the Oscar-winning Poor Things took the bones of Jang's story and rebuilt them into something that speaks directly to the current moment. In Bugonia, Jesse Plemons plays Teddy, a conspiracy theorist who kidnaps pharmaceutical CEO Michelle Fuller, played by Emma Stone, believing she's an alien from the Andromeda Galaxy responsible for everything from the decline of honeybees to the subjugation of the human race. What makes Bugonia hit differently is the gender flip. In the original, both the kidnapper and the victim are men. Here, watching Plemons' increasingly unhinged Teddy brutalize Stone's Michelle evokes something deeply uncomfortable. Images of domestic violence, of power dynamics, of a man who's convinced his cruelty is justified because he believes he's saving the world. It's deliberate, and Lanthimos never lets you look away. The film premiered at the Venice Film Festival, earned 4 Academy Award nominations, including Best Picture and Best Actress for Stone, and reignited conversations about conspiracy culture, corporate greed, and what happens when paranoia becomes indistinguishable from conviction. The original sits at around a 7.2 on IMDb. Bugonia edges it out at 7.4. But in terms of cultural impact, the gap is enormous. But I've saved the absolute best for last. Number 1. The Thing, 1982. In 1951, Christian Nyby directed The Thing from Another World, a tense little sci-fi film about an Arctic research crew that discovers a frozen alien. When it thaws, it goes on a rampage. Basically a tall, blood-drinking humanoid that plays like a mashup of Dracula and Frankenstein's monster. It's a solid film for its era, well-regarded and suspenseful, but the alien itself is, by modern standards, fairly generic. It stomps around, it attacks people, and it gets dealt with. No surprises, no deception. John Carpenter looked at that premise in 1982 and saw something the original completely ignored. In the source novella, Who Goes There by John W. Campbell, the alien doesn't just attack, it imitates. It absorbs other living creatures and perfectly replicates them down to the cellular level. The 1951 film left that detail out entirely. Carpenter made it the entire point. The result is a paranoia engine. 12 men trapped in an Antarctic research station, any one of whom could be the creature. The tension doesn't come from monster attacks. It comes from the fact that nobody can trust anyone. Every glance across the dinner table could be a death sentence. Every conversation could be your last. Carpenter understood that the scariest thing in the world isn't a creature you can see coming. It's the possibility that the person standing next to you isn't a person at all. Rob Bottin's practical effects remain, 4 decades later, some of the most disturbing creature work ever put on film. The chest chomp scene, the spider head, the kennel transformation. These aren't just great effects, they're the reason practical horror still matters. Here's the wildest part. When The Thing came out in the summer of 1982, it was considered a failure. Critics hated it. Audiences chose E.T. instead, but time told the truth. The original sits at a 7.0 on IMDb. Carpenter's version, an 8.2. Today, The Thing isn't just the greatest sci-fi remake ever made. It's regularly listed among the greatest films of any genre, the gold standard for what a remake can achieve when a visionary sees the story hiding underneath. These 9 remakes didn't just copy what came before. They tore it apart and rebuilt it into something the originals never imagined. And that's really the secret, isn't it? The remakes that fail are the ones that exist because a studio looked at a spreadsheet and saw a recognizable title. The ones that succeed are the ones where a filmmaker looked at an old idea and saw something nobody else could see. A new angle, a deeper truth, a story that the original technology or the original era simply couldn't tell yet. Not a single film on this list succeeded by playing it safe. They all took risks that seemed insane at the time, and they all paid off. Now tell me, which sci-fi remake do you think deserves to be here? Drop it in the comments, and let's argue about it.